Summer is here. At Orderly Meds, we know this time is a reminder that life is full of new beginnings. Whether you're celebrating the nice weather, starting a new chapter, planning a vacation, or simply looking ahead to what's next, this season can be the perfect time to invest in yourself and your health. If you've struggled with weight loss and are curious about GLP-1 medications, Orderly Meds can help you learn about your options. Through a simple virtual process, you can connect with licensed medical professionals who can determine whether treatment may be appropriate for you. Getting started is fast, convenient, and happens online from the comfort of home. This summer, consider a new approach to feeling your best. Visit orderlymeds.com/podcast to learn more. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. orderlymeds.com/podcast. Because every new season is an opportunity to take the next step forward. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. Every December, an estimated 34 million potted plants with bright red leaves appear in American homes, churches, and grocery store entrances. They are called poinsettias. Almost no one buying them knows the name behind that flower. Joel Roberts Poinsett was a South Carolina physician, botanist, and politician who served as the first United States minister to Mexico in the 1820s. He was also, by the assessment of the Mexican government itself, such a disastrous and meddlesome diplomat that they invented a word specifically to describe his behavior. Poinsettismo. It meant arrogant, intrusive American interference in Mexican affairs. It was used as an insult for decades. The man it described eventually got a Christmas flower named after him instead. Our history brief today is an excerpt from this Friday's Conversation Series episode and a conversation with historian Jane Rogoyska about her latest book, Hotel Exile: Paris in the Shadow of War. The full video of the interview is already available to our Patreon subscribers and will be released on our YouTube channel this Friday, as well as on all podcast platforms. A quick word from our sponsors.
Summer is here. At Orderly Meds, we know this time is a reminder that life is full of new beginnings. Whether you're celebrating the nice weather, starting a new chapter, planning a vacation, or simply looking ahead to what's next, this season can be the perfect time to invest in yourself and your health. If you've struggled with weight loss and are curious about GLP-1 medications, Orderly Meds can help you learn about your options. Through a simple virtual process, you can connect with licensed medical professionals who can determine whether treatment may be appropriate for you. Getting started is fast, convenient, and happens online from the comfort of home. This summer, consider a new approach to feeling your best. Visit orderlymeds.com/podcast to learn more. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. orderlymeds.com/podcast. Because every new season is an opportunity to take the next step forward. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
This day in history. On July 15th, 1099, Crusader forces captured Jerusalem after a bloody siege during the First Crusade, establishing Christian control over the city and leaving a legacy that continues to shape the region's history. On July 15th, 1975, the American Apollo spacecraft and the Soviet spacecraft docked in orbit, marking the first international human space mission and a powerful symbol of cooperation during the Cold War. Story of the day. Poinsett arrived in Mexico in 1825, appointed by President John Quincy Adams as the first ever official American minister to the newly independent Mexican Republic. Mexico had won its independence from Spain in 1821 after over a decade of war. The country was politically fragile, deeply divided between factions, and acutely sensitive to any hint that a foreign power, particularly its enormous northern neighbor, might try to influence its internal affairs. Poinsett was, on paper, exactly the wrong man for this assignment. He was a committed believer in the Monroe Doctrine and in the idea that the United States had both the right and the responsibility to shape the political development of the Western Hemisphere. He was also someone with a personal track record of doing exactly that. Years earlier, on a diplomatic mission to Chile, he had become so enamored with the country's independence movement that he helped draft a constitution and, for a time, actually commanded troops in the Chile army. Activities that had nothing to do with observing and reporting, which was ostensibly his job. He was sent to Mexico anyway. Poinset's official mandate in Mexico was to negotiate commercial treaties and settle boundary disputes. He immediately exceeded it. He got into a sustained political feud with Lucas Alamán, Mexico's foreign minister who favored closer ties with Britain and was actively working to limit American influence and territorial ambitions. Poinsett saw an opportunity in Mexican Freemasonry, specifically in the rivalry between Scottish Rite lodges associated with the old conservative establishment and the York Rite lodges, which Poinsett began organizing and promoting because they aligned with pro American political interests. He used his connections with the York Rite network to pressure Mexican President Guadalupe Victoria into purging members of his own cabinet, including Alamán's allies, replacing them with figures more favorable to American interests. Some historians consider this one of the earliest documented instances of the United States engineering what amounted to a soft coup in a Latin American government. Poinsett also pursued, without much subtlety, an effort to purchase Texas outright from Mexico, a proposal that struck Mexican officials as exactly the kind of territorial overreach they had feared from their northern neighbors since independence. He failed to acquire it. He succeeded mainly in confirming every suspicion Mexican officials already held about American intentions. The reaction in Mexico was swift and increasingly hostile. Poinsett was denounced in the Mexican press as a foreign agitator, accused of stoking the very factional violence and political instability he claimed he was trying to help Mexico overcome. The pro European, monarchist leaning faction in Mexican politics seized on his behavior as proof that American diplomacy could not be trusted. It was in this atmosphere that the term poinsettismo entered Mexican political vocabulary, a word built directly from his name, used to describe meddling, hypocritical, and aggressively self interested foreign interference dressed up as friendly diplomatic assistance. The word stuck because the behavior it described kept happening in Mexico and across Latin America for the rest of the century. Poinsett had simply been early and conspicuous enough to get his name permanently attached to it. By 1829, the Mexican government had had enough. They formally requested his recall. Poinsett left Mexico in early 1830, having failed to secure a commercial treaty, failed to resolve the boundary disputes he had been sent to negotiate, and failed to purchase Texas, but having succeeded thoroughly in making himself one of the most despised foreign diplomats in Mexican memory. While all this was unfolding, Poinsett had also been doing something almost entirely unrelated to his diplomatic failures. He was an enthusiastic amateur botanist, and during his time in Mexico, he had taken an interest in a native plant that the Aztecs had called the Cuetlachati, known regionally as the Christmas Eve flower, after the Franciscan friars who had displayed it during the holiday since the 1600s. Poinsett sent cuttings of the plant back to the United States to his botanist friends and contacts in South Carolina and Pennsylvania. By the mid 1830s, American agricultural reports were describing a striking red leafed plant that growers had begun calling simply the poinsettia. The name had nothing to do with diplomacy. It was simply convention. Plants were frequently named after the person who introduced them to a new region, regardless of what else that person might have done. Poinsett had no role in marketing or popularizing the flower itself. That work happened generations later, primarily through California growers in the 20th century, who developed compact, shippable varieties and successfully marketed them as a Christmas staple. But the name had already been set in the 1830s, decades before anyone outside diplomatic circles had any reason to remember what Joel Poinsett had actually done in Mexico. Poinsett returned to South Carolina, became a prominent Unionist during the nullification crisis, and was eventually appointed Secretary of War under President Martin Van Buren, a position in which he oversaw the forced removal of tens of thousands of Native Americans during the Trail of Tears. He died in 1851. His name today survives almost exclusively through the flower. Poinsett Bridge, Poinsett Club, and Poinsett Hotel still bear his name across South Carolina. December 12th, the anniversary of his death, has been designated National Poinsettia Day by Congress. None of it commemorates what he actually did as a diplomat. The word poinsettismo, meanwhile, has largely faded from use, a casualty of time, of the asymmetry of which country's historical memory tends to dominate, and of the simple fact that flowers are easier to remember fondly than failed coups. The History Brief. The following is an excerpt from this Friday's Conversation series episode and a conversation with historian Jane Rogoyska about her latest book, Hotel Exile: Paris in the Shadow of War. Just a reminder that the full video of the interview is already available to our Patreon subscribers and will be released on our YouTube channel this Friday, as well as on all podcast platforms.
And he describes how, as the Germans were approaching Paris, he was very proud of their vintage wines and their wine cellar at the Lutetia. And he decided he didn't want these wines to get into the hands of the Nazis. So he and his colleagues went down to these enormous cellars that they had at the bottom of the Lutetia, and they built a fake wall, and they hid all of the best vintages behind the wall, closed it up again. And so they had this kind of little secret sense of satisfaction because the Germans, who were not really accustomed to this kind of level of French, living, were beside themselves with their own sense of sort of sophistication and drinking all these fantastic champagnes and wines and food and boasting about what great vintages they were drinking. And of course, Weber and his colleagues had the little knowledge of going, well, you're not actually drinking the best wines.
Yeah.
It's a tiny little thing, but it's all, it's one telling anecdote that we have that tells you a little bit about how they felt.
Yeah, that's like an inside joke kind of thing. That's awesome. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you are enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. Also, I hope you guys check out our Patreon page, where for just $1 a month, you could have access to all of our video interviews 1 week before they air. And also, check out our YouTube channel, where we have videos and series that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.